Welcome to this abstract buildings acrylic painting. I'm going to show you lots of exciting techniques, and the tutorial is in real time. So I really hope you're going to enjoy it and that it inspires you to get your acrylics out and paint along. Let's get started. A list for the materials can be found in the description below, along with Amazon links if you'd like to purchase any of them. So I'm using acrylic paper that's primed, and I'm putting on some framing tape around the edge and also to actually give me a waterline. I'm squeezing out my paints straight on to the surface there, so no need for a palette. As you can see, I'm going to be using a palette knife there and a toothbrush for spattering with my water pot and a plastic card to enable me to paint these buildings. So I've got some blue, I've got some pinks and white, turquoise, and I'm using my palette knife now just to blend in this top right hand area here, blending in the blue as well. There's something very freeing up using a palette knife when you're painting either in acrylics or in oils. As you can see here, I'm blending the white now into the blue as well. So this is going to be the sky area, and there's lots of different skies you can paint for this atmospheric skyline here. I'm not actually using a photograph, I am painting from my imagination, but you may want to get a photograph just to help you along as well. This is a little bit of opera rose, yellow and white I'm blending here. So I'm kind of in two minds about the skyline here, but I just want to get all these lovely yummy colours blended in, adding a bit more white as well here and just blending in the creamy paint, trying to keep away from the blue at present. So I'm using a large flat synthetic brush, and I'm just going to blend these colours now, still keeping away from that yellowy pinky colour. I'm using my fingertips now to blend in the yellow colour up into the blue there to create sort of an atmospheric sky here. If you don't want to use your fingertips, you can either put some sort of food gloves on, or you could use a smaller brush and blend. So I'm actually adding a touch of pink to the horizon line now to create a little bit of warmth there. Again, blending with my fingertips, but as I say, you don't have to do that. You can use a brush or put some gloves on as well. So I'm adding a bit more white to the sky here. The paint is still quite wet, so there's no danger of it drying out here, and I'm just blending that with my fingertips. As you can see, I'm using some of the white that I blobbed out there to add a little bit more light in my sky, and I've actually put some white acrylic paint onto my palette knife there just to kind of create a little bit more atmosphere in the sky and some clouds as well, blending as I go. Could paint that sky all day long. I've just removed the framing tape there, so you see I've got a nice straight horizon, very important. So I'm just blending in these colours now in the sea area, and there is a little bit of cobalt blue and a touch of turquoise, some white and yellow, so it's going to be slightly different colours to the sky here. And I've added a bit of black here, just blending it down, sort of kind of imagining some reflections of the buildings here. So still using my palette knife, and I'm adding, as you can see, straight onto the palette knife there, some white titanium paint. I did wipe off my palette knife before I did this, so it wasn't contaminated, and I'm just blending at the top here and bringing it down into this blue, black and a touch of yellow here, and already it kind of looks like water by just smoothing this over those undercolours here, using the palette knife to sort of smudge into the paint there to create the look of reflections of buildings that I haven't even put there at the moment. So it's quite nice working this way. It's a lot of freedom. So I'm just blending away here. The paint's still wet, and that's what it's really important as well. If you want to work like this, make sure you get plenty of acrylic paint, because it allows you to paint for longer. And I'm using a plastic card and scratching into the wet paint as well to create thin lines, that sort of to create the look of movement of water. Now this is a really cool technique and I love it. I'm scraping along here with the plastic card and it actually looks like buildings, and where the cards stop it looks like the shadows on the side of the building. So it worked really well. So I'm doing the same for the buildings, the actual buildings. So the sky has dried and I'm just sort of using the colour from the water and using that to sort of paint it into the sky area for the buildings above. And it's quite nice because you can just literally borrow from the water to apply above. I've got a little bit more black on my plastic card, which is just a store card that I've cut up, and I'm just sort of printing and pulling the paint around, scraping it to create different sorts of effects, using the edge of the card to print with, but also swiping across the paint as well. And what the card does as well, it almost creates the look of the different sort of windows on these skyscrapers as well. I'm using the metal palette knife here to paint in some smaller buildings in the foreground as well, and using some of that white paint and painting it into the foreground of the water here also. So you could allow your painting to dry at this stage. I think my painting is still wet here. So I'm using the plastic store card and I've applied some black and red paint here, acrylic paint, just to get some really bold, strong colours. So you can be very, very creative with this. And, you know, it's your creation, especially if you're not copying from a photograph. You can really sort of experiment with different colours and paint it quite abstract as well, really jazzy colours. And even if you wanted perhaps to do this for a room in your house, you could almost match the colours there as well if you wanted to do something for yourself. As you saw there, I'm printing with a wooden peg, which you get when you get a box canvas painting. They're called keys, and you use them to stretch your painting if your canvas gets a bit saggy. So they're quite nice for making marks with, though. Very useful tool. So I'm using this to print with, to swipe with, just to create some really nice, interesting effects and reflections there of the buildings, especially the ones that I've just applied some red paint. As you can see, I'm drying off my painting now with a hairdryer. And once it's dry, I'm going to go back in, as you can see here, printing more marks and more details. So you could even try this as a beginner. You know, you don't have to worry about buildings. You can just print these rectangles, really tall and short, wide and thin, and just create these different marks. You can see here I'm using white titanium wet on dry to paint some highlights in the water as well, and on the buildings, printing them, just creating different marks. It really adds a bit of light and gives them more structure as well. always say to my students towards the end of the painting, that's when you want to paint your details in. So I'm using that wooden key again, and I'm just printing in some red marks here and there. So it looks like the lights on in buildings, and you can actually reflect that also in the water. This is a little bit of yellow there as well, so it's quite a nice combination. It could be the sun's going down here, so the lights are really bright on this sort of skyline here. So it's quite nice just to build up these details, just using the wooden peg for the details. So I've come to the end of my painting. It's always nice to remove the tape because you've got this white border and it shows your painting off well, and it can help you as well to assess to see if you need to do any more. So I'm just filling in here. I sort of didn't realise I hadn't painted up to the edge, which is fine, but you can make little adjustments. I'd always recommend maybe photographing your work to have a look at it with more objective eyes, or look at it the next day when you're not so close to it that you can be too sort of negative about it, because sometimes you don't realise how good your painting is until you look at it a couple of days later. So really trust me, I've many a times I thought I've messed up a painting and I've looked back and I've been quite pleased with it the following day. So I'm just making a few more little light highlights in the water here with my palette knife, just to give a little bit of sparkle to finish off this painting. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and it inspires you to have a go at this sort of semi-abstract buildings acrylic painting. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my acrylic channel so you don't miss any of my latest tutorials. Thanks again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.